Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be looking at this position. It is white to move and win. You can pause the video for a while to try to figure out the answer. Now, I have to warn you, this is not going to be a very simple puzzle. It's going to be very tricky. Even though it might look like it's very winning for white, you have to find the exact sequence of moves that's going to lead to a win, not a draw. Okay, so the first move that you might be thinking about is just a simple promotion. Well, if it was that simple, you wouldn't be watching this video because it's not going to be simple because if rook c3, the king moves away and rook takes queen. So that's of course not going to happen. Okay, so in order for white, for you to stop the rook from giving the check on c3 to win the pawn, you can just play king c4, right? King c4 attacking the rook. The rook moves away. The rook, it doesn't matter where it goes, is going to be losing for black. Except there's only one specific move. You have to pause the video for a while in order to find it. Because actually it's not rook d8 because it's very obvious. It's not rook here or here because he's just going to make a queen, right? And of course not here or here, and you have to move it from here, so by process of elimination you only have two squares. Either rook d2 or rook d1. Now let's see rook d1. What's going to happen with rook d1? Rook d1, to try to give this check because he cannot make a queen, we make a check and we win the queen. So he plays knight to e2, and now we no longer have rook c1 check, and the pawn promotion is unstoppable. That's why after this short thinking process, we play rook d2. Rook d2 and then rook c2 will be check. We will win the pawn or the queen if he promotes. You might say, well, there's a very simple move, very subtle move, which is king c3. Attack the rook. That's pretty much it, right? In this position, that's why I told you this puzzle is going to be very tricky and not easy at all. Because in this position, this is a draw. Yes, it is a draw. You might say, hold on, there is no possible way for black to stop the pawn promotion. Rook d1 to get this check. We talked about knight to e2. I guess we can even play like king c2. Right, king c2 as well. Because the rook has to move and the pawn will be promoting. Well, we don't play rook d1. We play rook d5. You might say, okay, what the hell is this move do? Rook to d5 is very subtle. It allows white to make a queen. Because in return, we're going to play a very beautiful move, which is rook c5, sacrificing the rook. Now we're going to win the queen on the next move. Unless white wants to take, and then as you can see that the black king, our king is stuck and we cannot move. So this is stalemate. That's why I told you it's very tricky to try to win this. You might say, okay, we can play just king c4, attack the rook. Well, he's gonna repeat moves. Rook d2, you cannot make a queen because of rook c2. And if you decided to go back, well, rook d5. The exact same thing. You might say here, okay, we're not going to make a queen. We're going to make a rook. If you put this position in an engine, chess engine, it's going to give you its equal. It's very much equal. I know that there's a rook and there's an extra piece for white, but this is not winning for white. I have no idea how, but this is a draw. It's called a theoretical draw. Not sufficient material as long as the rook is there. And once we play some kind of a king b5, the knight moves, for example, we force a rook trade, so now he has to take an after takes, insufficient material, a draw. That's why it cannot be won. So it is not making a queen right away. It's not playing king c4 because of the very tricky rook d2 and rook d5 to sacrifice to get a stalemate. So now you might find the first move right away, and you're really smart. You found knight e2. Knight e2 to stop the check on c3, and then you can safely promote on the next move. This is great. You found the first move of the sequence, and I really applaud you for that. Now, we cannot give this check on c3. There is no magical way to stop this pawn, because if we play some kind of a rook d2 now, white promotes, there is this check, and we can win the queen back. But unfortunately, after rook d2, there is knight to b4. Not to before, there is no check on c2. The next move will be a queen, and this is going to be very much losing for black. So after knight to e2, you might be saying, okay, this is 100% winning. We're going to promote on the next turn. Black cannot do anything to stop us. Even after rook d2, there is a check. A simple check, just to block this from happening. The king moves whatever, we don't really care, and then we promote in the next move, right? That's why rook d2 is not the right move. The best move in this position is to play king to a5. This is the best defense for black. Now you might say, okay, fine. Now king to a5 is just, it's a very subtle move. There's nothing about this move. We can now just make a queen, and now we'll be very happy. Knight will be getting in, and also this is checkmate in 1 on a8. Unless we move the king to try to run, but we cannot run because a queen versus a rook is 100% winning, of course. Unless we put white in this slight obvious trap, which is rook to c3, sacrificing the rook. Now, of course, if the king decided to move away, we're gonna win the queen, and this is a draw. Yes, even though we have a rook and he has a knight, it's still a draw. Insufficient material. You might say, well, he can just take the knight. Well, once he takes the knight is taking control of this square. The king is taking control of these 3 squares, and the queen taking control of the a6 square. So it is a stalemate as well. That's why I told you it's very, very trappy. You might say, okay, fine. After king to a5, what's going to happen? We don't make a queen because it's going to lead to this stalemate. So what will happen? If we decide to make a rook in this position, what will happen? Rook c3 doesn't work anymore because if the takes, the king still can move here, right? But even this position, it's still a draw. I know, it's still a draw. The king will just move. He's going to make another move like king c6 to try to get this checkmate on a8, but we just play king a7. He plays a check, we keep moving away, it's not going to be leading to anything. So you might say, you said this is winning for white, right? So how are we going to be winning this position? Well, after knight to e2, king to a5, here, I actually forgot this. Oh my god, I just solved this position. Just after, like 5 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago. And I actually forgot this. Oh yeah, no. In this position after king to a5, the trap that I was so focused on explaining, which is after making a queen or making a rook, is going to be leading to many traps here. And if we promote it to a rook, it's going to be a draw because once we get some kind of a check, we trade the rooks. It's going to be still, a draw because of, only one knight on the board. It's going to be bad, and we're not going to be actually winning this position. So now, in this position, we just play a very simple move, king c4, attacking here. He doesn't have time to try to stop the pawn because we just make a queen right away. He moves the rook somewhere. For example, it doesn't matter where. It doesn't matter actually where. Like rook d2, we just make a queen. He just gives this check, but we can just block, right? Yes, this looks like this is some kind of a stalemate, but there isn't actually, because after takes, he can just move. He can still move. It's funny that I actually invested too much time into thinking about this, making a queen or a rook, and not actually thinking about the final move, which is king c4, because I was only focusing on making it as a draw, because this is the best thing for black to actually happen. But this is white to move and win. That's why at the end we just play a simple king c4, attacking the rook, threatening to make up a queen. Rook d1 does not work because the knight is guarding the c1 square, and we're going to be stopping this pawn. For example, let's see something else. Something very tricky as well. Let's see rook d6. Rook d6 is very insane, right? Because whenever we make a queen, there is this insane rook c6 move as well, and after queen takes, this is another stalemate. Oh my god, I keep explaining, and every single time I explain, there's another trap that I discover in this position. This is the trickiest position I've ever viewed on my channel. This is insane. Okay, so after rook d6, what will happen? Yes, so after rook to d6, after we attack the rook, we cannot make a queen or a rook because making a rook will lead to a draw. Making a queen will lead to the sacrifice and a stalemate for black. So now we play knight to d6. Sorry, knight to d4. What the hell is knight d6? Okay, knight to d4. We're stopping this check from happening. There's nothing black can do right now. Nothing, literally nothing. What about the sacrifice? Rook c6 sacrifice. Oh, this is getting insane. This is getting insane. After knight takes, this is a check. But there's king b6. Are you telling me this is not winning for white? Am I gonna go insane? I've solved it. No, we can just make a queen. We can just make a queen. No, we cannot. Because whenever we make a queen, it is also a stalemate. This position is insane. I literally just solved it after like 10 minutes ago. And after solving it, I'm trapping myself into these kind of, wow, this is insane study. So here, whenever king to b6, we don't make a queen, even though I did make a queen and I blundered this, but I solved it before and I found out because I had time to think. It is rook to c6. Black can just move. And whenever he plays this, we are totally okay with giving up the knight, so we can just give him some kind of a check. We can just move away, let him take the knight, and then try to put him in this square, and then you know the rest. You know how to checkmate with a rook and a king. You just keep making this box a little bit smaller in time, and then just get the king here, force him back, and then checkmate him on one of the files. That's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for watching. I see you again with another one.